So today we're going to be talking Intel versus AMD. This is going to be kind of a comparison video between the two of these stocks and the two of these companies, and I guess the pros and cons, of investing in each of these. Now, I'm sure, as you guys know, I'm very bullish on AMD, but I'm going to try my best to be as unbiased as possible and just present the facts and let you guys decide that if you're looking to invest in one of these two companies, hopefully this video will give you an idea of which one you want to invest in. I'm probably going to also do this same style of video for AMD versus NVIDIA, and I'm also probably going to do a video just on NVIDIA solely because a lot of people have asked me about NVIDIA stock. So be on the lookout for those. When I have time, I will definitely get those going. But first, I just kind of want to paint the picture of AMD stock versus Intel stock over the last couple of years. So Intel and AMD are competitors in the semiconductor industry. They both make CPUs for computers, also for servers, and a couple other different areas, but they basically are in the semiconductor industry and they are competitive with each other. However, right now, Intel has a very strong lead on AMD, especially in the server CPU market. Intel currently dominates the consumer CPU market and the server CPU market, which is kind of what I said there, but specifically the server CPU market. They have pretty much all of that market right there. So they have a majority of the CPU market for the consumer CPUs, but they pretty much own the server CPU market right now. Now, AMD is the underdog, hoping to regain market share with the new CPU line, the Ryzen CPU line, as well as the new GPU offerings that they have coming out in the near future. So as far as the CPU market goes, there's basically a duopoly there where you have Intel versus AMD, although you also have like Qualcomm and stuff, so I'm actually not going to call that a duopoly. With the GPUs, pretty much the only ones who have offerings are NVIDIA and AMD, but with CPUs, there are other companies who do have CPUs and other offerings as far as the semiconductors go, so I'm not going to call that a duopoly, but definitely for the GPUs, pretty much the only two people you see making products for that is AMD and NVIDIA. So as far as the stock goes, if we look at the stock price over the last couple of years, over the last month, Intel's down about 1%. Intel's down 1% in 2017 so far. Over the last year, Intel's up about 18.5%. It's up 36% over the last 3 years and 39% over the last 5 years. Now, if we look at AMD, they're actually down 32% so far over the last 3 months. They're down 4% overall in 2017. They're up 169% over the last year, 170% over the last 3 years, and 75% over the last 5 years. Now, that doesn't really paint a picture all that well for us, so the best way I could show you guys how much AMD stock has rallied is by looking at how much it's come up since February of 2016. So from February 2016 to now, AMD is up almost 500%, which is absolutely astounding. And in the same time frame, Intel is up only 26%. So obviously there was a much stronger rally with AMD, and it's because a lot of people just totally gave up on AMD, and the stock really did become significantly undervalued, which many people see now. But as you can see, when a stock rallies that much, obviously there's going to be a lot of excitement around that stock. So that's why more people are probably talking about investing in AMD than they are talking about investing in Intel right now. Seeing a 26% return over that time frame is nothing exciting, but seeing a 500% return is something that people get excited about, and it definitely catches people's eyes. As far as the stock goes, AMD stock has a $10 billion market capitalization with a forward PE of 36. Obviously, they don't trade or they don't pay a dividend out because they are not turning a profit. That's also why we don't have a PE ratio on them. We only have a forward PE based on estimates of projected earnings. Then as far as Intel goes, they have a market capitalization of $170 billion, so significantly larger than AMD. They have a price to earnings ratio of 15, and they currently pay a 3.04% dividend. Okay, so first, let's make the case for Intel. So Intel is the longtime industry leader in the semiconductor industry, and cloud storage is really what I think is one of the biggest things that's going to help Intel in the near future, because cloud storage is becoming increasingly more common and popular, and because Intel has roughly 98% market share of the data center market with their server CPUs, they will be largely impacted by an increase in cloud storage, because obviously we're going to need more servers, and with those servers they're going to need CPUs, and because they have that major market share in that CPU market for servers, they're going to be buying more Intel CPUs. So cloud storage I see as a huge plus for Intel right now. The only argument on the side of AMD is whether or not that Naples CPU that they will be releasing will be competitive enough to basically chisel out some of that market share from Intel. So that would be kind of the Basically the AMD side of things, if you were trying to argue the point of that cloud storage maybe not being such a benefit to Intel specifically, because if basically people are looking to go for the best priced CPU and AMD has something that's competitive with Intel, they may decide to go with the AMD CPU just for cost savings. And you got to understand too, as far as data centers go, they're not just buying one CPU, they're buying hundreds or thousands of them because they're having so many different servers. So it's not like a small price difference is a small deal. Even a couple dollar difference, or any amount of difference, is a lot more than you would think because they're buying in scale with such a large number. Now, Morningstar estimates that Intel will see a 9% compounding annual growth rate from the data center side through 2021. So that's a good side of that business, that they'll be seeing some growth. My favorite thing about Intel right now is their recent acquisition of a company called Mobileye, which is a company that develops vision-based driver assistance systems. So obviously this shows you where AMD is headed, where Intel is headed. They have interest in getting into the driverless as well as the driver-assisted technologies. Now, as far as those companies go, Mobileye is the one to have because Mobileye has 70% market share of the advanced driver assistance systems that they offer. By 2025, the driverless car market is expected to be worth $25 billion. $42 billion. 2025 is expected to be worth $42 billion. So this is something that could be absolutely huge for Intel. So if you're somebody who really strongly believes in the driverless car market and you really see that as the next big thing, Intel might be a good play for you because of their acquisition of Mobileye. It kind of shows what they're going to be directing their efforts towards. Now, the other thing that is interesting about Intel is the Internet of Things. That's where they're seeing the most growth for their business right now. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Internet of Things is, that was myself before I did some research on this, but it's something I definitely want to learn more about. But basically, the Internet of Things is basically the interconnection via the Internet of computing devices embedded in everyday objects, enabling them to send and receive data. So Internet of Things is the fastest growing segment for Intel right now, up 15% year over year in 2016 and accounting for 4% of total revenue. So while it's not a huge part of their business, it is the fastest growing segment for their business. So it's very clear by this here that Intel is positioning themselves to be a key player in the emerging driverless car market. So that's kind of, in my opinion, where Intel is heading. Right now they're just absolutely dominating the CPU server market. So with more money being spent on servers for the increase in cloud storage, that's a huge plus for Intel, as well as this Mobileye acquisition, where if the driverless cars take off, which they are expected to, and many of us believe, if we see that happening, that's also huge for Intel. So I'd say those are the two biggest pluses or advantages to Intel right now. Okay, so next we'll talk AMD. We'll make the case for AMD. So AMD is involved in the CPU and the GPU market. They're basically, like I talked about earlier, that GPU duopoly is between AMD and NVIDIA. Currently, AMD has about 29.5% market share, while NVIDIA has 70.5% market share. So NVIDIA still has the majority of the market share of the GPU market. The new Vega GPU architecture will be hopefully making them competitive against what NVIDIA has to offer. The new Ryzen CPU architecture is going to be going after Intel's consumer CPU market, and the new Naples CPU is going to be going after Intel's server CPU market, where we said they have 98% market share right now. So if AMD is able to pull any of that market share away from Intel, that is a huge plus for AMD. It just basically comes down to whether or not they're going to be able to keep up with their promises and what they said they're going to be able to offer us. AMD unfortunately has a long history of overpromising and under-delivering. So that's why a lot of people don't really believe AMD anymore when they say they're coming out with something cutting edge, because they don't have the best track record. So AMD also sells semi-custom chips to Sony and Microsoft, and basically AMD has been in a perpetual state of playing catch up with Intel. Now, if they are able to pull some market share away from Intel, I'm not sure if it's going to be something that they can do long term. But a lot of people are under this misconception that AMD has to just blow Intel out of the water, when in reality all they have to do is be slightly competitive and they can pull some of that market share away from Intel and hopefully turn a profit for a couple of years. And I'm sure eventually Intel is going to pull ahead again and suck market share away from them. But as an investor, for me, those are my big reasons for investing in AMDs, because I'm thinking that short term they should be able to pull some market share away from Intel and NVIDIA with these new offerings until they're able to basically put something even better out. So that's kind of the case for investing in AMD right now, is whether or not they're going to be able to pull market share from these giants. AMD is currently operating at a loss, and their first profitable quarter should be Q2 or Q3 of 2017. So as far as the verdict goes, I would say that if you're somebody who's looking to play the favorites, like if we're talking horse racing, if you want to play the favorites, you're going to play Intel and Nvidia. They're lower risk, they're safer investments, but obviously with lower risk, there's lower possible return. If you're somebody who bets on the long shots in a race, you would want to play AMD. So I think really what it comes down to is your level of risk tolerance. And also, you know, whether or not you believe that AMD is going to do everything they're saying they're going to be doing. So obviously, like I said, playing the favorites is lower risk and lower return, and playing the long shots, obviously with that higher amount of risk, there's going to be higher potential returns. As you can see that with the stock performance since February of last year, seeing that stock come up 500%, and it was even up more when AMD was trading around $15 a share. So anyone who bet on AMD way back then, they saw awesome returns. Whereas with Intel, because they're kind of one of the favorites, they did not have as much of a return over that time frame as AMD did. But anyways, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this video. This is Intel versus AMD. If you guys enjoyed this video, please drop a like. If you have any feedback for me, please drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to be notified of any future uploads. And as always, I thank you guys for watching this video.